All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 21st episode of Time for Mental Health podcast. I'm Viaano, the founder of Huddlehumans, and I'm very happy to be joined today by a very special guest, Ghib Ojisan. Thanks for coming on our show, mate.
Thank you for having me, Viaano.
Okay, so first things first, would you like to give the viewers a very brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Okay, I make videos on YouTube mainly. I think I like to say I make simple vlogs, sometimes just documenting my daily life, getting an HDB here. I recently got my PR, also, trying out local food and just, making fun videos in Singapore. And I'm married to a Singaporean.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Beautiful. I mean, congrats on the HDB. Congrats on
Thank you.
the PR, man. I'm very happy for you. So very fascinating. I think when I was checking the profile of Ghib out, I was very intrigued and motivated by the good and entertaining work that Ghib does, not only in Singapore, but his experiences throughout life in different countries. So I would encourage everyone to check him out. I'll put his social media handles in the video here, as well as in the description below. All right, so let's kick it right off, yeah? By looking into the differences of the working culture between Singapore and Japan. You have worked in both countries, yes?
Yeah, but Singapore only for 6 months and only one company. So I don't know if what I'm saying will be completely true.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's just your personal experiences. Yeah?
Okay.
So what do you think are the main differences between both countries, Japan and Singapore, when it comes to working culture, professional? Yeah.
Pretty easily put, I think Japan is more intense in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
For me, yes. I know a lot of people in Singapore say it's very competitive and very stressful here, but from my experience, I feel like Japan takes it to the next level. So me adjusting from Japan to Singapore was not too difficult. Actually, I felt it very laid back and chill.
Yeah.
In Japan, I think, first of all, boss. They, in general, people like to micromanage. Yeah. So there's just a lot of pressure, a lot of like communication with boss. Sometimes you got to do it the way they like it. But in Singapore, it's more like just results driven. So if it's okay, for example, for you to take, I don't know, like 1.5 hours of lunchtime, as long as you get your work done. Yeah. And that's kind of not, I mean, when I was working at that time, Japan's changing right now, slowly. I heard it's getting better and better, but in Japan, it was difficult. Because in my company, I think not just my company in Japan, a lot of companies at 12 p.m., that's lunchtime, right? We have the bell, like the school bell, ding, ding dong, ding dong. And it rings again at 1 p.m. sharp. So you have to be at your desk by the second bell.
Wow. Okay.
So it's, that's just one example. But
Interesting. I mean, I have a lot of close Japanese friends. When I was living in Australia, I made a lot of my close friends are Japanese, and they tell me a lot of stories similar to what you're saying. I've heard that when you're working in Japan, like in whatever profession you are, you can't leave until the biggest boss leave and ends work and leave. Is that true?
Yes. Nowadays, it's changing, I heard, because there was a big incident where a young girl committed suicide because of working very long hours. So after that incident, big companies are telling, okay, just leave lah.
Just leave.
Don't stay too long. So the bosses, they are told to not make their employees work for too long. But there is still that mindset. I think it's still difficult to just leave without feeling guilty. You know, when your boss is still there, it just feels, guilty, feels guilt. And in Japan, it's important to say, お疲れ様でした when you're leaving early. it means like something like goodbye. And it's you cannot just leave without saying anything. That's like very rude. So in Singapore, it was interesting because it was okay not to say anything. You could just sneakily go. At least in my company.
Yeah. So wait, go chisu sama deshita.
お疲れ様でした。
Oh, sorry, that was for eating after finishing eating.
Yeah.
お疲れ様でした。
Yeah, you have to say that. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, so Japan do really take it to the next level when it comes to working culture. But you're saying that slowly the thought, the perception of working is slowly changing because
I heard it's changing. Yeah, it's a lot of incidents, and especially international companies. I heard it's very different. I worked at a very Japanese company, so
interesting.
Yeah.
So are Japanese people expected to work at a single job? Like almost their entire life. Are they? What happens if they change job? Like say from a different industry to a different industry. How is it looked at in Japan? Is it okay to change jobs?
This one, it's getting acceptable, I guess. Times are changing, so I think it's better to talk about my experience. So when I just joined my company, people still said you should work for at least 3 years until you change to your next company. But now it's changes. That's like 10 years ago, right? Right now it's getting more, people are finding new jobs relatively quickly. And so my company, I think I had like 20 doki. I don't know how to say it in English. Like, so people who joined at the same time were all similar ages. In Japan, we all joined at the same time. For our first job. So that's usually in April. I had like 20 same age, colleagues. Right now, I think only around like 6 are still at the same company, the first company.
Okay.
So 14 people are already not working at the same company.
How many years? How many years has it been?
Oh, this is like 8 or 9.
8 or 9. Okay.
So it tells you that Japan's kind of like becoming more, maybe like, like other Western countries where people, it's okay to change their job. But yeah, still, I think compared to Singapore, no.
Yeah. Singapore is more and more accepting of people changing jobs, changing industries as compared to Japan.
Definitely, yes.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, so all right, thanks for sharing your thoughts about the working culture between Japan and Singapore. I think it's very, very interesting. Now let us dive more specifically into mental health. What are your thoughts about the mental health situation in Japan?
Well, I think it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure, pressure from work, family, maybe. And some people they don't know what to do with that. So that results in the number one, is it still Japan? The suicide rate? Maybe it's Korea or Japan. I forgot.
If I remember correctly, in OECD countries, South Korea is number 1. Japan is out of the top 10 in a lot of different segmentations, but they are still always. I mean, on average, the past decades, Japan has always been significantly very, very high. Not as high as compared to South Korea, but still very high. It is a social issue in Japan, according to statistics. But one thing I wanted to talk about that I thought was interesting is I heard that bullying is very common in the school systems. In Japan.
Yes.
And among students, and I heard sometimes even teachers, might abuse students, get physical. Have you heard of that? Have you gone through that, or
I heard of that, but I was raised in the United States, so
I saw.
I cannot really talk about that, but I heard it's pretty common.
Okay. There was a story that I heard because some of my Japanese friends, they do share me stories that growing up in the education system. In high school, they would give out counselor forms to see the counselor if you have any issues in life, with family, with friends, and every one of the students, they just crush the paper and throw it in the bin.
Oh, okay.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I think in Japan there's this mindset of collectivism versus individualism. Like, and what I mean by that is that most of the time you have to sacrifice your own identity for the benefit of the group. And if you don't conform to a certain way that Japanese people portray, you will be outcasted or bullied. It's about the group in Japan, yeah?
Yes, correct. Okay. Very toxic, I think.
Very toxic. Yeah. Wait. So you grew up in the United States?
Yeah.
Did you? But you went back to Japan, yeah, to study.
Well, that was college.
College. So it's like university.
University, yes.
And how was it? How was it there? Like, what's your experiences in Japan when you're studying in college?
Experience.
In terms of mental health, like
in terms of mental health. Oh, okay. I mean, I saw people were very responsible. You know, they are very hardworking, responsible, very respectful. So that was quite unique because in America it was very different. But I think that's something that leads to, you know, the mental health issues. People are too responsible. People take it too seriously. Yeah, so moving to Singapore, I learned that, you know, Japan was we take everything too seriously. Why don't we just, you know, enjoy our life? Like, for example, like people working at the convenience store in Japan, they are paid the minimum wage, but still they provide you like great service, right? But in Singapore, when you go to a convenience store, they use their phone, they talk to their colleagues. Sometimes they are very rude.
Yes.
But I think it's okay because I feel like it's more relaxed in Singapore outside of Japan. I mean, what's wrong with using the phone when there's no customers? You know, what's wrong with that? In Japan, so even when you're not paid that much, you are expected to work so hard, provide great service, and that leads to this very toxic working culture. But yeah, so I think going abroad will kind of give you a different perspective, that it's okay to take it easy.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult.
It is definitely. I mean, there's pros and cons in every country, right? But I mean, what I'm hearing you say is Japan is they take things more seriously.
Yeah, too serious.
Too serious. But you know what's the funny thing? Because okay, look, I'm born and bred Singaporean, right? I grown up in Singapore. But when I went to Australia for the past 3 years, they're even more laid back.
Really?
They're even more laid back than I thought Singapore was very serious. But when I went to Australia, it's so chill. It's so laid back. I mean, they don't even reply anything about work on the weekends, or even when they finish their work at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. No replies, nothing. The boss, if the boss texts me something, an Australian, they're not gonna reply most of the time. But sometimes Singaporeans do reply, you know, on the weekends for work.
I noticed that. It's quite intense in Singapore too. Yeah. So a lot of my clients, right, they want to know my WhatsApp number because it's easier for them to reach out. I make sure I never give out my WhatsApp number. Yes. Because they'll reach out to me via WhatsApp and they want a fast reply, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want that. I tell them to just email me.
that is actually what I do as well. I mean, you got to separate the work life and your personal life. You have to keep the balance. It's so important. You're exactly right. Okay, so quickly, do you think there's a change in perception of how people look at mental health in Japan? Do you think it's people are changing their thoughts about mental health in Japan?
Okay, again, I live in Singapore, so I'm not up to date, but I think still Japan, in terms of mental health, nothing has changed that much.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only recently that in Japan. So for example, when a famous celebrity commits suicide, right? For example, outside of Japan, when medias make that article, at the bottom or at the top, there's always like a call line. So if you need help, please call this number. Because that article will affect those who are in bad state, right?
Yeah.
But in Japan, they only recently started putting that. So that tells how late.
Yeah.
How
they're slower. Yeah. Compared to other countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. All right. So let's move into. I mean, first off, thanks for sharing your thoughts. That's a good answer. But before we move on to the next question, just want to tell the viewers, if you're enjoying the podcast so far, smash the like button down below. And okay, so the next question I'm going to be asking you is, okay, COVID happened, right? COVID happened it was reported around the end of 2019, early 2020. And then in the 2 years that followed, I want to ask, how did COVID impacted you throughout this time? How did it affect your mental health in any way?
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think like everyone, it was quite tough because we couldn't go out when it was very bad. And humans, we need the sun, right? We need the sun. We need some exercise. So that will just result in bad mental state. But it was initially tough when I got COVID because like my wife treats me like germ. I can't go out. There's nothing to do. So that was very bad. But I eventually started looking at the good stuff because nothing's just bad. I feel like nothing's just bad. There's always something good as well. So what was good about it? It was good that I can actually make content. I made a video called I Got COVID and it did pretty well. So
nice.
I was able to make content. I was able to read a lot of books. Because before that, I was too busy. I was working. I didn't really have time to take a rest. But COVID made me forcefully take a rest. I found a lot of nice books. So that incident was kind of like it gave me this new perspective that I can look at the positive side too. Yeah. So not just like COVID, like everything. Like I think a lot people watching this, there might be people who's suffering from a lot of stuff happening around them. There's always something good. So I think it's important to look at that.
I think that is very good that you say that. I think it is a quote. There's this quote that I follow in life. It's always to take the positives out of the negatives. That even if there's a negative situation, you can always find something to positive out of it. And like what you did, I mean, you had COVID, and that made you do more content. You adapted, and even give you more time to venture into other hobbies, reading books. Yeah, I think that is beautiful. That is beautiful. It's very positive. Out of a negative
situation. Though. I know it's difficult because as a YouTuber, I get most of the comments are good, right? Yeah. But when I get one negative comment, I'm always like, I want to quit YouTube. It's very tough.
Like
even when I have all the good comments. So I know it's difficult.
It's just like the human brain tends to focus more on the negative things.
Exactly. So we should know that. Just keep that in mind. That's how that's how we are programmed. So just look at the good part, the good side too.
Awesome. I mean, that is a very, very well shared thought by you throughout the COVID period. Thank you for being so forthcoming with your answers. I really appreciate you sharing some of your stories, and I think a lot of viewers will resonate and will be really grateful to hear what you've mentioned today, to know that they are not alone in their struggles, that a lot of us also go through similar struggles, or even different struggles, but there's always a bright side to it. There's always a positive out of the negative situation. All right, just one final question. I don't want to hold you back before you go. I want to ask you, do you have any self-care strategy? And by self-care strategy, I mean, do you have any like hobbies, any fun things you do outside of your working life? Anything that makes you refresh and happy?
I think having a good routine. So I wake up, I go for a walk, 15-minute walk, get some sun, and then go have a cold shower, make myself a great cup of coffee, and then start my day. So I think that really helps my mental state. Instead of like going right to work, do something that makes you happy. For me, that's going for a walk, having nice coffee, reading. Then I work.
Beautiful. So it's the simple things that makes life
simple,
meaningful. Yeah.
But people are too busy, right?
Yes.
But I feel like we should prioritize our health number one.
Yeah.
Health first, then work. So
Exactly.
that's why I walk first. I read first. I do some exercise. In the morning.
And I think that helps a lot. I mean, not only mental health, but when you mention health in general, there's so many things that comes to it, right? Like emotional health, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and everyone's different. So everyone has a different kind of self-care strategy. I mean, for some people will be watching movies, some people will be cycling, and it depends on you. What makes you happy? What makes you refreshed? Take that time out of that stressful day, of that busy working day, and treat yourself. It's okay.
Yeah.
Some people feel guilty in some I mean everywhere, but in some countries, some people feel more guilty. Like it's not okay to treat myself to the life's pleasures. But anyways, we have come to the end of Time for Mental Health podcast. And once again, it's an honor and it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you so much, Ghib, for taking the time out to share your stories and experiences. And I know a lot of people really appreciate what you shared today. So that's all, and I'll see all of you next time.
Thank you, Viaano.